Hey there. I want you to take a second and think about something. Isn't it strange? We have DoorDash bringing food to our doorstep in minutes. Netflix loading the next episode before we can even think. Amazon promising same-day delivery. Every single second of our lives is being optimized for speed. And yet, somehow, we feel more rushed than ever. Like we're constantly falling behind, running on a hamster wheel that just keeps spinning faster. Here's the hard truth, the one we don't often say out loud. Our addiction to now, this obsession with speed and hustle culture, it's the silent thief of our biggest dreams. We've been sold this idea that faster is better, that success is a sprint. But what if that's all wrong? What if the ultimate competitive edge, the real superpower in the 21st century, isn't some new tech, but an ancient virtue that's been forgotten? Over the next 30 minutes, we're going on a journey together. I'm going to give you the roadmap, a simple, 3-step framework to reclaim the superpower of patience and transform how you achieve your most meaningful goals. But before we get into the framework, let me ask you this. Think about the one accomplishment you are most proud of. Maybe it was getting that degree, building your own business from scratch, or mastering an instrument. I'll bet it didn't happen overnight, right? It took time, it took focus, it took patience. That feeling is what this is all about. So if you're ready to trade the anxiety of the rat race for the quiet confidence of the marathon, go ahead and grab that cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive in. Have you ever wondered why it feels so hard to just put your phone down? Why we have that constant itch, that pull to check our notifications, even when we know there's probably nothing important waiting for us? The answer isn't a lack of willpower. It's because of a powerful little messenger in your brain called dopamine. Now, most people think of it as the pleasure chemical, but it's more accurately the anticipation chemical. It's the brain's way of saying, "Hey, pay attention. This could be good." This system was designed for our survival. Thousands of years ago, when our ancestors found a bush full of berries, their brain released dopamine. That hit of anticipation served as a powerful lesson. Remember this spot. This is a good thing. Our brains haven't changed, but the world has. Today, instead of berry bushes, we have the infinite scroll. Every time you pull to refresh, you are pulling the lever on a slot machine. The reward, a funny video, a new photo, a like, is unpredictable. And that unpredictability is what makes the dopamine system go wild. And here's the small, powerful lesson in this. That restless feeling, that urge for just one more scroll, it's not a character flaw. It's an ancient survival system being triggered by modern design. And awareness isn't about blame. It's the first step to taking back control. So now we understand the why behind the rush. But what about the how? How do we counteract a system so deeply wired into our biology? Well, thankfully, the antidote is just as ancient as the problem itself. It's not found in new technology, but in a timeless story. So let me tell you a story. It's about a young man named Kai. Kai was bright, ambitious, and he wanted everything yesterday. He lived in a constant state of, "Are we there yet?" always comparing his chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. One day, his grandfather, a quiet gardener, gave him a single seed. He said, "You want the flower, but you despise the dirt. Plant this, but remember, nature's timeline is not your timeline. Rushing will get you nothing." So Kai did. The first day, he was hopeful. By day 3, he was getting restless. After a week, he was tempted to quit. Every single day, he watered the empty soil, feeling like he was performing the most pointless task in the world. And then, one morning, when his patience had worn tissue thin, he saw it. A tiny crack in the soil. Then, a speck of green. It was tiny. It was fragile. But it was there. And for the first time, Kai didn't feel impatient. He felt awe. In that moment, Kai understood the gardener's principle. The seed was his goal. A business, a new skill, a relationship. The daily watering was the small, often boring, consistent effort. And the sunlight, that was time, the non-negotiable, unrushable ingredient. And here is the heart of the gardener's principle. You cannot force growth. You can't stand over the soil and yell at the seed to hurry up. You can't pull on the sprout to make it taller. Any attempt to force it only harms the delicate roots. Now, this story feels intuitively true, doesn't it? But what's fascinating is that modern science has actually proven the power of this principle in the real world. And it all comes down to a simple, famous experiment involving children and a single marshmallow. This single marshmallow was the star of a now famous experiment at Stanford University in the 60s. The rule was simple. A researcher placed a marshmallow in front of a child and said, "You can have this one marshmallow right now. But if you wait 15 minutes until I get back, you can have 2. And then the researcher would leave. Some kids ate the marshmallow the second they left the room, but others struggled. They covered their eyes, kicked the table, sang songs to themselves, doing anything they could to resist the sweet temptation in front of them. Here's the fascinating part. Years later, the researchers followed up with these kids. They found that the children who were able to wait for that second marshmallow, on average, had better life outcomes, higher SAT scores, better health, and more successful careers. Their ability to delay gratification was a powerful predictor of their future success. So, what's your marshmallow? In your career, it's the choice between a high-paying job with no room for growth, the first marshmallow, and an internship or a lower-paying role with incredible mentorship and a steep learning curve, waiting for the second. It shows up in our finances every day. Building a good credit score is a marshmallow test that takes years. And compound interest, that's the ultimate marshmallow reward. The dollars you invest today instead of spend quietly work for you, growing into a future wealth that instant gratification could never buy. And this reveals a fundamental truth. The greatest rewards in life are rarely found on the path of least resistance. They are on the other side of a period of waiting, of discipline, of delaying gratification. So we've seen the incredible upside of patience, the 2-marshmallow life. But what about the downside of impatience? What is the real, hidden cost of always choosing that first marshmallow? Of living in a world that constantly screams faster? This image, this is the promise of hustle culture, an ideology that worships busy as a badge of honor. It's the belief that if you aren't exhausted, you aren't working hard enough. But it forgets to tell us the crucial difference between being busy and being productive. When it comes to learning, impatience turns us into tourists of knowledge, not travelers. A tourist snaps 100 photos, but learns little about the culture. A traveler sits down, observes, and understands. We listen to podcasts at double speed. We skim articles. But how much do we truly retain? It's like trying to find water by digging 10 different wells, each only a foot deep. You're constantly busy digging, but you're always thirsty. We enroll in a dozen online courses hoping for a quick fix, but we never stick with one long enough to dig deep and actually hit water. And in our relationships, we chase contacts instead of connections. We pride ourselves on the number of LinkedIn connections or Instagram followers, but lack the people we can call at 3 a.m. A deep connection, like a tree, has to be cultivated over time. It can't be hacked, and this is the hidden cost of the hustle. We accumulate many shallow things, shallow knowledge, shallow skills, shallow relationships. But we miss out on the one thing that brings true fulfillment depth. So if the hustle isn't the answer, then what is? If digging faster and in more places isn't working, how do we change the strategy? It starts by changing the question. It starts by stopping the search for a hack and starting to build a system. Every great structure begins with a single line on a blueprint, and every lasting change begins with an internal one. Our first step in building a more patient, fulfilling life is to become the architects of our own focus. For most of our lives, we are taught to set outcome goals. Lose 20 pounds, get the promotion, make X amount of money. These are the prizes. They are great for giving us a direction, but they are a terrible source of daily motivation because we don't have 100% control over them. The secret lies in shifting our focus to process goals, the practice, not the prize. Imagine you're the captain of a ship. The island on the horizon is your outcome goal. You can't control the weather or the tides, but you can control steering the ship, trimming the sails, and checking your compass every hour. Those are your process goals. That is where your power lies. So what does this look like in the real world? Instead of lose 20 pounds, you focus on go to the gym 3 times a week. Instead of become a famous YouTuber, you focus on publish 1 high-quality video every Friday. Instead of get fluent in Spanish, you focus on practice on Duolingo for 15 minutes every morning. You fall in love with the process, and the results will follow. So here is your first practical action step. Get out a piece of paper or open a new note. Write down one big outcome goal you're working towards. Now, right below it, I want you to write down 2 or 3 process goals. The small, specific, measurable actions that are 100% within your control. This is a game changer. Knowing what to do each day gives you clarity and power. But this raises a new question. Once you're focused on the process, how do you handle the waiting itself? What do you do in that long, quiet space between planting the seed and seeing the sprout? This long, quiet road. This is the plateau. It's the most dangerous part of any journey. After the initial excitement wears off, you enter a phase where progress seems to stop. This is where most people quit. But it's also where we have a choice. The choice between passive waiting and active waiting. Passive waiting is sitting back and hoping something happens. It leads to frustration and a feeling of helplessness. Active waiting is using the waiting period to prepare for the growth that is to come. It leads to readiness and strength. Think about a content creator. Passive waiting is uploading a video and then checking the view count every 5 minutes. Active waiting is uploading a video and then using that time to analyze your data, learn a new editing skill, or script your next 3 videos, or in your career. Passive waiting is doing your job and hoping your boss eventually notices you for that promotion. Active waiting is doing your job well, while also seeking feedback, learning a new skill for the next level, and volunteering for challenging projects. And here is the critical mindset shift. The waiting period is not a pause button on your journey. It is part of the work. It's not wasted time. It's preparation time. It's the time you use to sharpen the saw. This is powerful. So, we're focusing on the process, and we're waiting actively. But let's be honest. Even when we're doing all the right things, there are days when we feel like we're going nowhere. Our brains are forgetful. They're wired to notice the daily struggle more than the slow, incremental progress. So how do we give ourselves proof? This blank page. This is what our memory feels like on a bad day. Our feelings are unreliable storytellers. When we are tired, they tell us we have made no progress. This is why our final step is to create an objective source of truth. It is time to value data over drama. Think of a rock climber. Inch by inch, all they feel is the burn in their muscles and the struggle of the climb. But when they pause, take a breath, and look down, they see the proof of their progress. The proof of progress. Journal is your way of looking down. This does not have to be complicated. Your journal can be a simple notebook or a note on your phone. Instead of feeling fitter, you track push-ups completed. Week 1, 5. Week 8, at 15. Instead of feeling richer, you track savings account balance this month. Instead of feeling more creative, you track words written today. This logbook becomes your antidote to doubt. On the days you feel like quitting, you open it, and the data does not lie. It says, "Look how far you have come. The process is working. Keep going." And here is the final step of our system. Trust the data, not the daily drama. Start your logbook today. Just one entry, one small piece of proof. So there you have it. The 3-part system. Focus on the process. Practice active waiting. And keep a record of your proof. This framework is powerful. But there is one last crucial layer of wisdom we need to add. What if I told you that after all this, sometimes the most enlightened, the most patient thing you can do is to be impatient. This fork in the road represents one of the most advanced skills in life: the patience paradox. How can impatience, the very thing we have been working to overcome, sometimes be our greatest asset? Imagine your journey is a ladder against a wall. The patience we have been talking about is climbing that ladder, rung by rung. But constructive impatience is having the courage to pause, look around, and ask, is my ladder leaning against the right wall? In your career, be patient with a difficult project, but be impatient with a toxic work culture. Be patient with learning a new skill, but be impatient with a career path that no longer brings you growth or fulfillment. In the startup world, this is called a pivot. Successful companies do not blindly persist with their initial idea. They are patient with their vision, but they are impatient with a failing strategy. They gather data and quickly change course, and this is the master skill. Wisdom is not just having patience, but knowing where to apply it. Be patient with your process, but be impatient with the wrong premise. Patience is a virtue, but persistence in a failing strategy is not. So, our system gives us the strength to climb, and this paradox gives us the wisdom to know if we are on the right wall. Ultimately, it all comes down to a choice we make every day, a choice between two versions of ourselves. And so, we arrive back at this choice. We have journeyed together through the dopamine traps, learned from the gardener's principle, built a three-step system, and understood the patience paradox. This choice, at its core, is a conversation between two versions of you that live inside all of us: your 10-year-old self and your 80-year-old self. Your 10-year-old self wants instant gratification, the first marshmallow. It says, I want it now. Your 80-year-old self wants peace, meaning, and a legacy. It asks, what will truly matter in the end? Your legacy is not written in one grand moment. It is built in the 1,000 tiny, daily choices when you decide which voice to honor. And so the final lesson is this. The ultimate question is not, how can I be more patient? But rather, which self am I building a life for today? Thank you for sharing this time and this journeys with me. I would genuinely love to know, what is one process goal you are committing to, starting today? Share your story in the comments below. You never know who you might inspire. If this video resonated with you, please consider liking and subscribing, and turn on notifications so you do not miss our next journey together. Be well.